Today our problem statement is that we have to create a Java program where we have to print the per day income for these three resources, and we will use Java functions or method. If you have not completed our previous Java method or functions class, then first do that, then jump into it. Now to complete this program, we have to create some block of code that is basically we called functions or method, and then we will pass monthly salary there and we will get the result. So before doing that, first let's understand how we can create that one without a Java method. So if you see here, I have created a per day salary class under com.demo.method, and if I double click here, so you can see under this main method I have created some float variable, and this salary of Mark is nothing but we are trying to collect Mark monthly salary under this variable. Similarly, I have created for John and Thomas. So here I have given an statement that enter Mark's monthly salary, and with the help of scanner class I am trying to collect the entered value or entered salary under the salary of Mark, that is this. Now second step, we are trying to calculate the per day salary based on this logic. So that is basically monthly salary by 30, that is nothing but per day salary, and Mark per day salary I again create a variable Mark per day salary. Similarly, I have created for John and Thomas. These are basically variable which will collect the calculated value of per day salary. Now once I get the calculated value of per day salary, then I am trying to display is per day salary here. So you can see here for Mark, first I take input, then I calculate the logic, then display the per day salary. Similarly, I have done the same thing for John. So take input, then calculate the logic, and finally display the per day salary. And that is the same thing for Thomas. So I take the input for Thomas, then calculate the per day salary, then display the per day salary. Now you can see here that we are doing the same task that we already discussed last class. Now if you go to the solution part, so actually we have to create a block of code so that we can reuse the same block of code which is called a method in Java, and for each user, for Mark, John and Thomas, we will pass some monthly salary as a parameter, and this block of code basically display the result by calculating the per day salary. So how we can do that? So before going to that, we have to understand what is the exact syntax of Java method. Now this is the syntax of any Java method. First access modifier, then return type, then method name, then first bracket start and end. Under that you have to write your parameter. This is optional, sometime it is needed, sometime not. And then this is my method start and end block. Now under that we can create our logic, and finally we have to give some return statement. Now come one by one. Access modifier, so public, private, these are basically some access modifier. So what is public, what is private, that currently just ignore. Just understand that we have to write something like public or private. There are other access modifier are there, but just understand that for the time being, for simplicity, we will use public access modifier here. Now if you don't give this one or if you skip this one, then Java automatically take it as a public. So default access modifier Java set as public. Now coming to the second part, that is basically return type. So return type is something which type of value you want to return based on your method logic. Now it can be integer. So if you want to return some integer value based on your logic, you can create a integer type return type here. If you want some floating type value as a return type, so then you have to create a return type as float. If you need, let's say your program gives some true or false statement, then it will be written here and your return type should be boolean. So you can create any type of return type here. Now in our future class, when we understand class and object concept, then we can discuss that return type we can return some object as well. Okay, now this is method name, so you can give any type of method name, but as a good developer always try to create a method name which is relevant or which is understandable. Let's say in our case we are trying to calculate the per day income, right? So you can give here a method name per day income calculator, or per day income, or per day salary converter, something like this. So with reading your method name, you can easily understand what is the exact logic you have written under this method just by reading this name. Now under this bracket there are parameters. So what is this parameter? So you can create multiple parameter or a single parameter, or without parameter you can also create a method. So for our case, let's say we are trying to pass the monthly salary, right? So here we have to create a parameter, let's say float monthly salary. Now this is the second packet start, so our method logic will be running here. Now return statement, it can be as I told that integer or float or double, but in our case we are not going to return anything, so we can make our return type as void. Now let's check this in Eclipse so that you can understand more better. Now as you can see here in this per day salary calculator, I have create the step like take input, then calculate logic and display the per day salary. And for every user or every actor I am doing the same thing. Okay, so currently I don't need that one, so let me remove this part. Now you can see here I have removed the calculations part and display part. Why? Because that type of things I will create under a method. So this is my class and this is my main method, and just outside this main method I will try to create another method. Now if you check here again, the syntax is accept modifier, then return type, then method name, and under bracket if parameter is needed we have to do that. Then your method start here, end here. If you need return type then you have to give here, and if you don't need return type then we can make this return type as void. So let's do that. Now just outside this main method but under this class I am trying to create a public, that is basically my access modifier, return type my void. You can see here I have given a proper name like per day salary calculator, and I am using camel case. If you don't see my naming convention video, just check that. So for the method we will try to use camel case. So like per day salary calculator, this is the method name, and you can easily understand using this method name that what we are going to create under this method, right? Now the parameter we are trying to pass monthly salary, and this is definitely a float type. So under this bracket we are trying to create our parameter, that is our method parameter. Now our method start here and end here. So this is the exact syntax for our method. Now here we have to create our business logic, right? So what is our business logic? So we already take the input. Now the two step, one is calculations of per day salary and then display that per day salary, right? So first our calculation logic, I have created a float variable to collect the calculated value of per day salary, that is equal to what is the value passed as a monthly salary divided by 30, right? So we can do it like monthly salary divided by 30. So this is our logic. Now what is our next step? We have to print this value that is calculated using monthly salary by 30, right? So this is my per day salary, we have to print that one. To print that we can use this type of things, that is basically system.out.println, and here we can give that his per day salary is equal to that per day salary that we calculated under this variable. Now this is basically my method definitions, and as it is not returning any value, that's why I have created the return type as void. Now my method definitions is done. Now it's time to call this method, but from where I have to call this? So I have to call this from here because I need to display Mark's per day salary. I need to call it from here to display John's per day salary. Even I need to call this method from here to display Thomas per day salary, right? Now how to call this? Now the syntax to calling this method is like this. So first you see that we have some scanner class, that is basically inbuilt class, and we have create an instance of scanner class, and using this instance with a dot operator we are actually calling the method under this scanner class, right? So the same syntax we will use to call this method. Now understand where we write this method. So this method is written under the class per day salary. So definitely like scanner class we have to create an instance of per day salary. So how we can do that? So just like a scanner class you can create an instance of per day salary. This is the same class, and we can create like ins, that is basically instance of per day salary. You can give any name here. Now the syntax is like new, so you have to create a new and then again per day salary and first bracket start and close, then just terminate it with semicolon. So no need to do anything under this. So once you do this type of things, your instance of this class is ready. Now using this instance, I can easily call the method that is available under the same class, right? So how we can call this? So here I have to call this, so I will take the help of instance of this per day salary class. So this is my instance and then I have to call per day salary calculator. Now here you have to pass the value, right? Because we need, or this method expects some parameter that is basically monthly salary of each user, right? So I can pass here salary of Mark. This is basically monthly salary of Mark, so I can pass it here like this way. So you can see here, first I have created an instance of this class. This is my instance name, and using this instance I am just calling this method and trying to pass the monthly salary of Mark. Similar way, can call the same method for calculating the per day salary of John. So how you can do that? So first use the help of this instance of per day salary, then dot, then again call this method that is basically per day salary calculator, and here what I have to pass? I have to pass salary of John. So this is basically monthly salary of John. And same thing we can do for Thomas. Again take the help of instance of that per day class, then call this method per day salary calculator that you just created, and under this which type of value we have to pass? That is basically monthly salary of Thomas. Once you call this method with some value, it will go here and it will check the value that is basically passed from here, and now take this value under this variable, and then it will calculate the per day salary with this value that is passing from here, and that will be divided by 30. So that's mean you will get the per day salary, and finally that per day salary I am trying to print here. So our first statement, enter Mark's monthly salary. So if I run it here, so it will first ask me enter Mark's monthly salary. If I put here let's say 3000, then it will take the value here and call the method you define and pass this 3000 value here, and then this method calculate the per day salary and display the result like his per day salary is 100, right? Similarly, then the next statement that asking John monthly salary. So if you enter John monthly salary, let's say 4500, then if you enter here, so it will give you 150 is per day salary, right? And now it come to the next statement, that is Thomas salary. So if you enter let's say 900 and enter, so you will get his per day salary is 30 rupees. Okay, so that means every time when you are trying to call this method with that particular value, it will directly go to this method, and here it will collect the value under this variable, and then under this per day salary it is calculated with this value divided by 30, and that per day salary calculated value will be displayed here like his per day salary is equal to something like this. So this way you can create a method. This is basically definitions of the method, and you can call this method from anywhere in your class where you need it. Now you can see here, every time I have to take the help of instance variable, which is nothing but instance of this class, where basically I have declare or define this method, right? Now there is another way. If you don't need to create any instance of this class, so you can directly use static keyword like public static void. Okay, and if you use this static keyword while defining your method, that's mean this method is under that class and you don't need instance of that class to call this. You can directly call this method. So here I don't need to create any instance. I just commenting this instance, and without instance just directly I can call this method. So just remove this one, that instance dot, and you can get that I am just directly calling this method without creating any instance. So how you can do that? You have to use a static keyword here. Okay, so if you use this static keyword, then you don't need to create any instance. But if you don't use this static keyword, then you have to create an instance of that particular class to call that particular method that is needed for your executions. So the recap is that when you try to create any method, so you have to create a access modifier, a return type. You can give some parameter, it is optional. This is your method body. Here you can write your logic, and if you need any return type, let's say instead of void int, so you have to return that integer value, let's say int 0, int 1, or whatever your logic. To call this method, you have to create an instance of that particular class where you define this method, and if you directly want to call this method, then you have to use a static keyword.
I believe this video has helped you to understand about the topic. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe, click on the bell notifications and select all so that you don't miss any video from this channel.